Welcome everybody on this beautiful rainy night. It could have been snow, right? And ice. So. We have to thank for what we have. You're happy for sure it's not snow, huh? And welcome to the Kamer family back again. They should have simchas in the family and take comfort in the great memories of the great mother and husband, mother and wife that she was. We'll never forget her. Very special lady. We're talking about the great accomplishment of a person watching the way they speak and the great terrible pitfalls of not being careful how we speak, lashon hara and gossip, bechilus. We mentioned some of them in the past. Rabbi Chaim telling us with his great kindness how we have to be careful for our own good, for this world and the world to come, to be careful with the way we speak. Another very important idea of the Rabbi Chaim telling us how important it is to watch our tongue. God gave man the power of speech that differentiates ourselves, I got it right, between us and animals. As far as our body is concerned, naturally we have a neshama. Animal doesn't have a neshama. Man has a soul which lives forever, which is a holy part of us. Everybody has a soul. But physically speaking, when we look at somebody and look at an animal, there's not much of a difference because animals have a head and they have feet and hands and so on. But what makes us special is our power of speech. And with that speech that we have from God, this great gift, we are able to do so many mitzvahs, so many good things with the power of speech. We can pray to Hashem with our mouth, with our words. Any type of chas v'sholom, any problem we have, we use our mouth to pray to Hashem. We use our mouth to learn the Holy Torah, which is the biggest mitzvah a person could fulfill, to study Torah. And we use our mouth for many other good things too, to do other types of chesed, kindness, and so on. So, Rabbi Chaim tells us we have this great, wonderful power of speech. We could sanctify our mouth with such holy actions, prayer, and study of Torah. We come to God and speak to Him. He speaks to us when we learn Torah. We speak to Him when we pray. The difference between Torah study and praying is when we pray, we speak to God. When we study Torah, He's speaking to us. But we have this great relationship between us speaking to Him, He speaks to us. If this mouth that we have, we use and abuse it for the wrong words and conversation and speech, we contaminate our mouth and make it so unholy and so mundane and so disgusting by speaking words of lashon hara, gossiping about other people. This wonderful mouth that we have, such a great gift from Hashem, from God. And we take it as if we put garbage into the mouth. That's what we're doing. It's worse than garbage, of speaking lashon hara about other people, of saying words of foul language, not appropriate words for a human being to say, certainly for a Jewish person not to say. Today, it's so prevalent in the world. You just walk by people in the street, every second word coming out of their mouth is so disgusting until they don't even feel it anymore. It's so abused to an extent people don't even realize what 25 years ago nobody would even dream of saying such words out of their mouth. And today it's just the standard. It just comes out. There's nothing to it. That's how insensitive we've become to words of disgust, all types of words, expressions, and so on. And this is degrading this great power of speech that God gave us. It's contaminating our mouth and our tongue and our teeth and our throat, all the different parts of our mouth that different syllables come out from, different expressions of the ABC come out from different 5 parts of our mouth. Contaminated. And then we go to God, we pray to Him. Is this as if it's something like we go to the king and bring a nice present to the king, a nice, beautiful basket of fruit. We present to the king. What do we put into a garbage can? King, here, we're presenting you with this great gift of fruit and beautiful, appetizing kind of foods, and put it in the garbage can. What does the king think about it? That's how you give me a present in a garbage can? We go to pray to God with contaminated mouth, with speaking things we shouldn't, and we pray to Him. So God says, that's how you come to me to pray, with a mouth full of such disgusting words, speech that you've spoken the last day, last week. That's how you come to me to study the Holy Torah, with your mouth to say all the holy words of the Torah, with a mouth that was contaminated with all kinds of different kinds of words that are not appropriate for a human being to say, not the mitzvahs we're supposed to do with our mouth. And that minimizes the power of our prayer. Minimizes the power of our prayer to a great extent. If we come to God with a holy mouth or with an unholy mouth, makes a big difference how He accepts our prayers. Maybe that's one reason why we go to a great tzaddik when we want him to pray for us. Many reasons, but one reason is because a great tzaddik is careful with his mouth. He doesn't say things he shouldn't say. He only uses it for holy reasons, not for mundane and not appropriate words to be said. Therefore, his prayer carries much more weight than people who are not careful the way they speak. It's an interesting expression of our rabbis tell us. Yerushalmi, Rabbi Chaim brings it down. One of the great rabbis in the Talmud Yerushalmi says, if I would be at Mount Sinai, I would tell God to give us 2 mouths. We have 2 ears, 2 eyes, and 2 nostrils. I'd ask Him to have 2 mouths. Why? One to speak holy things, and one to speak mundane things. They're not, God forbid, any bad things, but just to talk about things we need, financial things, taking care of different things, but have a mouth specially made for praying and studying Torah. The other mouth for things that are necessary for a person's body to live, chas v'shalom, not to say foul things. And it would keep a person's mouth that he's praised with, it would be much holier that way, without using the same mouth for things that are mundane. And then he said, but then I thought it over, and I said, oh no. Look at a person with 1 mouth, how much gossip we speak. How much gossip we speak with 2 mouths. Better God gave us 1 mouth. It's okay. It would have been better to have 2, to keep 1 for holy and 1 for simple, plain things, but the chance is too big. We'd abuse the second mouth also. we use both mouths for things we shouldn't talk about altogether. So I guess that's why God, he said, made only one mouth. Even though we have two eyes and two ears. So this is something we have to keep in mind when we have that big challenge of speaking some juicy gossip, and we're just plotting to give it out to say it. And the Yetzer Tov says, don't say it. The Yetzer Hara says, do say it. You'll get the popularity. Wow, people around you, they're going to hear about, well, but he did this and this and this. Wow. Think about how we're contaminating our mouth. Think about when we go to God, when we go afterwards, we're going to shul. In shul, people do Lashon Hara. In shul, we're praying. And then we go with the same mouth. So that could be a deterrent from the great Nisayan challenge that we have of using our mouth to the right thing. If we keep this in mind and think to ourselves, it's not worth it. It's not worth it. Even though I might have pleasure of saying this gossip now and everybody's going to get all excited about it, I'll get all the attention. But afterwards, coming to God, I won't have attention of God. I won't have attention of all the angels. They'll look at me, look at him. But that mouth, you come to speak to God. So let's keep it in mind and help us out to say what we should and not say what we shouldn't. Back to our study of Chumash, of the Holy Torah, and we're again talking about Yosef and his brothers after they recognize each other and realize who they were, who Yosef was, and he kisses them and he hugs them. Finally, they talk to him. And there's something an amazing thing over here I want to talk about tonight. When I say the word amazing, that word has been overused. Today everything is amazing. You have an amazing day, an amazing Shabbos, an amazing, especially teenagers especially, they love the amazing, everything's amazing. So when I say amazing, I mean what it used to be 25 years ago, amazing, really amazing, in my generation. Yeah. Today everything's amazing. But really amazing for us old-timers, when we really know what amazing really means. The Torah tells us, Hakol, the number one, the glossary sheet. The news was heard in the house of Pharaoh that Yosef's brothers came to Egypt. Mentioned before, the Egyptians were all very confused of what's going on with Yosef and his brothers, what's he treating them. They had to go back home again and bring Binyamin, and he wants to take him as a slave. They didn't know what's going on. It was very strange to them what was going on. They couldn't figure out what's going on. Finally, they find out these are his brothers. Vayita b'einei Paroi. It was very good in the eyes of Paroi. He was very happy to hear that his brothers came to Egypt. You know why? Because Rashi tells us later in Parashat Vayechi, because Yosef, as far as they're concerned, he was a slave, right? He was in a dungeon, he was a slave. And according to the laws of Egypt, the slave cannot rule, cannot get a high position in the government. And here he is second in command. They sort of pushed away the law, and they made an exception for Yosef because he did so much for them. They made an exception and made a slave into a high position in the Egyptian government. But now, he's not a slave. Look at his brothers came down. He's a regular person. He's a family man. That was very good because people were upset that there was a lot of jealousy, of course, of Yosef, and there were people who were screaming. Something like I think Obama, when he was running for president, they were saying, he's not an American, he wasn't born here, we shouldn't become president, you have to have a law, you have to be born in America. The same type of thing. People were complaining, they were jealous. So now, here we go. He's a family man, and now he's legitimate, l'chol hadayis, 100% legitimate. He has the right to be second in command. So, Pharaoh was happy, and all his second, all his servants were happy. And Paro is telling Yosef, now I see your families you have a whole family from the land of Canaan. Go and bring them down here, and we'll treat them nicely. They'll have a good time in Egypt. They should move down here. We're not going to let you go there. We're not going to let you go, naturally. You have to stay here. But we don't want to separate the family. So, bring them down with you. And the words were said. Va'ata, this is the amazing part. Va'ata tzuveisa zois asu. You are commanded by me, tell this to your brothers. That what? Number 4, take wagons and go to the land of Canaan and bring your families and your father and everything they own, bring down to Mitzrayim. You're commanded. I'm commanding you as the king. You must do this. The question, what does it command him for? It seems like it's such a simple thing. Naturally, Yosef wants to have his brothers and his family to come down. Does he need a commandment from the king to decree upon him that he must bring down his family, send wagons from Egypt, take wagons from Egypt and go? What's he commanding him over here for? So we have in number 5, the Ramban. Pharaoh knew the piety of Yosef, that he would not stretch out his hand to take anything from the king. And therefore, he had to command him, because he was so careful, Yosef, not to take something that does not belong to him, that the king was afraid he would leave his father and his family there. He wouldn't take the wagons. The wagons belonged to the king, to Egypt. And he knew how pious Yosef was, that he would not take something that doesn't belong to him. Unless he's commanded by the, you have to do it. If he wouldn't command him to do it, it's not mine. What right do I have to take it? Yosef. He saved the whole country. They're all alive because of him. He's second in command. He has to be afraid to take something from Egypt, something that doesn't belong to him. Everything belongs to him. He saved the whole country. It wouldn't be for him, they'd all be dead. They'd be dying for starvation. And he's afraid to take. That's the amazing thing. The piety of Yosef, realizing, which is the theme of our shmooze tonight, we're talking about, Gezel, taking something that does not belong to us. That is what our theme is tonight. That was Yosef was so afraid, so careful. I should take from the king a thing that does not belong to me? I can't do that. It's not mine. It's not yours. You're Yosef. No, I can't. He needed a commandment. Suvesa, part of you're commanded from me. I know you're so pious. I know you don't want to take anything, but I'm decreeing upon you as the king that you must take the wagon and send them to the land of Canaan and bring your family here. That's the Ramban tells us. The great Ramban, Moshe Bar Nachman, not the Rambam, Ramban Bar Nachman, who lived a little bit after the Rambam. And he, on his great commentary on the Chumash, explains to us why he had to be commanded to do so. How bad is the sin of Gezel, of stealing, of taking something that does not belong to us? How bad is that? Well, a few examples. We have number 6, the Dor HaMabul, the great flood that destroyed the world. They had many sins that they did. Three great sins that they did. They served idols. and they had forbidden marital relations, and they were very into stealing things from people. The three big ones, three averas of the generation of the flood. But, rabbis tell us, Rashi brings down, what was the real final decree based on? Gezel, because they were stealing from each other. They were stealing from each other. Worse than idol worship, worse than bad marital relations, stealing. And we want to discuss what is so terrible about stealing that makes it so terrible, worse than everything else. Another statement from our rabbis in number 7. If you have a box full of sins, that's like a parable. You have a box full of sins. Let's say the box was called you'll be able to gather them together. Full of all kinds of sins. People do all kinds of sins. You have 613 laws in the Torah. So a lot of sins a person could commit. Which of those sins is the most accusing one against the person or against the nation or against whoever was guilty? A box full, we go around, I'm sure, and have different opinions over it. What's the worst sin the person can do? I'm sure we have a lot of different opinions on it, which makes a lot of sense. But our rabbis tell us, the worst? Stealing. Gezel. That's the worst. The worst of all the sins is stealing. Taking something that does not belong to us. That's the worst. Yosef knew this information, naturally, and he was so careful, that he got a reputation that he wouldn't touch anything that doesn't belong to him. He wouldn't go near it. The worst sin? Gezel. The king had to command him. You better do it. I don't care. It's okay. Full permission. You're not taking anything that does not belong to you. I'm telling you to take it. Because he, with his greatness and his piety, knew how bad Gezel is to steal. Now, I want to go over, before we discuss why Gezel is so terrible. Of course, just without going into deep discussions of it, we understand that Gezel can cause a lot of problems. People will start arguing and fighting with each other, and it'll cause a lot of anguish and a lot of problems between people. You steal from somebody and he catches you and he's angry at you, and naturally it's going to cause a lot of big problems, and just without even delving into the depths of the whole thing. But there are even deeper reasons than that. But first I want to go over some of the things that are included in Gezel. Some things that people don't realize, take for granted, and don't realize that's Gezel. Don't realize how bad it is. That it means that Torah considers that stealing. Maybe you might speak to people outside and say, no, that's okay. It's okay. It's no big deal. But people think it's not a big deal. The Torah considers a big deal. So, I'll mention one thing right off the cuff. You ever see some people when they're in the supermarket, and they're at the fruit department, and they're picking out the cherries. Every once in a while, put one in their mouth, taking a grape or a cherry. That's Gezel. That's stealing. Taking without paying. Putting. Some people just take one. Okay, one. They don't care so much. So some people, another one. That's stealing. So most people will say, nah, so what? What do they care? How much is considered stealing? What is the value of something that's called stealing? There's two laws of stealing, by the way. Stealing is, number one, taking something that does not belong to you. And the Torah says, once you steal, you must return it. You have to return it to the person. There's two different laws of stealing. One is you're not allowed to take it, to steal. And the next law is you have to return it if you take it. If it's not around anymore, you have to pay for it. The law of stealing is even less than a shavar pruta, even less than a penny. It has almost no value. You're not allowed to steal. No matter how unimportant it might be, but the person owns it, it's his, you're not allowed to steal even the most minute amount of value. It's not permitted to steal. Coming to returning, then it has to be worth a shavar pruta, or a penny. It's not exactly a penny, but around that. Return it, if it has to be worth a penny to return it. If it's less than a penny, you don't have to return it. But a person sinned by taking it, that's the first law he neglected, and he transgressed by taking something that doesn't belong to him. But comes to returning, only if it's worth a pruta, then a person has to return it. Shalom midas. We have in our number 8. To borrow something without permission. I said, I'm giving it back. I'm just borrowing it. I won't give it back. You go into your office and you need a pen. You don't have your pen. So you go to somebody else's desk and take their pen. That shows Shalom midas. You're borrowing without permission. If they told you already before, you're allowed to take it. But if they never gave permission to use it, maybe they don't want you to use it. Maybe it's I call it a Parker pen. Now today, still considered that used to be the best pens around. Today, I don't know, but it could be something that means something to them. It's important to them. But whatever it is, to take without permission is forbidden. You wouldn't take his car without permission. Hopefully, that's certainly considered stealing. But even something small, you go and take a piece of paper from their desk. They have, but that's stealing. That especially not even going to give it back. Shalom midas. To borrow without the person's permission is considered gezel. It's stealing, according to Torah law. Many people will say, "Nah, nothing wrong with that. I'm giving it back to him. It's okay." It's not okay. Yosef wouldn't do that. Yosef, who was so particular about the law of gezel. We go to number 9. Gezel zman, to steal people's time. Stealing doesn't mean you go and pickpocket somebody and take something away from them. If you cause them to lose something, that's considered gezel also. A very good example of it is you steal people's time when you're parking your car and you see there's a few parking spaces. So you go right in the middle. So now there's not enough room for the guy in back of you, not enough room for the guy in front of you. If you would have gone a little further up, people would have 2 more parking spaces to park. But I found the parking spaces right in the middle, and just walk out of the car, and the next guy comes and he can't park over there. So has to go around and around and around. He stole his time. Look at his time he stole from the person. Because he's too lazy to pull up a little bit or go back a little bit and think about the other person. Time is money. We have an expression here, Zeit ist Geld, we say in Yiddish. Time is money. Time is very precious. People are paid how much an hour? $10 an hour, $20 an hour, $100 an hour. Who knows? If somebody might be a very professional person, but him have 20 minutes. A big lawyer, take $1,000 an hour, $2,000 an hour. For him, 20 minutes is worth $300. But even as a plain person who makes $10 an hour, so for him it's worth $2. He has to go around 20 minutes. Gezel's man, stealing time. You have to think about the other person. Torah is very, very particular about gezel, all types of gezel. I'm just giving one example, but we can. Yishma Chacham Yosef Lekach, a Chacham, wise man hears, and he adds on to realize that if we're causing people to lose time, sometimes you take a book off the shelf, and you don't return it, and the next person comes looking for that book, can't find it, has to walk around to look for it, stealing his time. He could have been doing some great things during that time. He could have been studying during that time. He was looking for that book. He's wasting his time. Zeit is Geld. It's worth a lot of money. Especially if it has to do with spiritual time. A person could have been doing something spiritual. It's worth more than all money in the world. And he can't do it because you took his time away from him. He didn't have time to do it. Something very, very important for a person to consider. What do we have next? Gazel Shina. To steal somebody's sleep. It's late at night, and you like to hear music. So you put up the music. But somebody's sleeping upstairs, somebody's sleeping next door, maybe it's the window's open, and the person can't sleep because you're making too much noise, talking too loudly, making noise whichever way. But in the meantime, the person can't sleep. Is that right? He's stealing his sleep. That's called Gezel Shina, we call that, stealing sleep. What's terrible about these things, stealing time and sleep, because you can't return it. If you steal something that's tangible, at least you can return it. But if you steal sleep from a person, return the sleep and hit him over the head and put him to sleep, how are you going to return the sleep? How can you return time? Time is lost. It's gone. You can't take it back anymore. That's the type of stealing which is non-returnable. That's terrible. Of course, sometimes even stealing an object is not returnable if a person steals from many people. Person has false weights, false scale, false measures. He sells things and he doesn't be careful about his measuring, whether it's weighing or volume, whatever it might be, and people come to buy from him and he feels good, he may be not aware of it even. Later he finds out, well, why don't you check your scale? You should have checked it. Or somebody might do it on purpose, just a little bit for everybody, a little bit for everybody. By the time, at the end of the day, he makes a lot of money. He wants to do tshuva now. He comes to Torah spot. What'd you do? You're not allowed to steal from people. Oh, okay, I'll do tshuva. Tshuva to who? 1,000 people came to the store this week. You know who they are? Where are you going to find them? Where are you going to go to find them? So, can't do tshuva. Don't forget, and Yom Kippur, like we have over here, I'm going to put it down over here. Yom Kippur forgives people, ask forgiveness from Hashem to forgive for our sins. But a person cannot ask forgiveness from God for, it's on the back. Oh, good, thanks. Yeah, on the back, I noticed that. Number 18. Shkoyach. You're always coming through in the clutch. Number 18. Yom Kippur does not atone for a person who steals and doesn't return the item that he stole. A person can stand Yom Kippur crying, forgive me. What are you crying about? Return what you stole, then we'll talk. Then we'll talk about forgiveness. You didn't return it, then you can't ask for forgiveness. What's the poor guy going to do now? He doesn't know who to return it to. That's a big problem. Big problem. Person that steals from the tzibur, from the community, from many people, how is he supposed to do tshuva? Of course, we're told, second best, to do something to give the community something that they could be able to benefit from. You start a gamach, you start a loan society to lend out money to people. Hopefully people are coming, 100 people, 200 people over the years. Maybe the people that you stole from, they'll come and they'll be able to benefit from, make some kind of a fountain of water people could drink in the summer with the hot. They'll come drink from the fountain that you make. So maybe the people you stole from will come and do your best to give back to the tzibur, to the community, something that they could benefit from. Through that, maybe to a certain extent, you'll be able to pay back to the community. Maybe people that'll be benefit from what you gave them back. But naturally, it's not going to be a full tshuva. Naturally, of course, we pray on Kippur and tefillah zakah to God. Please, I forgive everybody for whatever they did to me. If they stole from me, I forgive them. If they can't give it back anymore, please put in the mind of everybody that I did something against them. They should forgive me for what I did. If I stole from them, don't know who they are anymore. Maybe they should forgive me. Whatever. We try our best to make up for it, but it's very, very difficult. Very difficult to be able to tshuva on a thing like that. So that we have gezel of objects which you could return, but not always if you stole from the tzibur, from the community, from many people. Gezel machshava, number 11, to steal people's thoughts. How do you steal people's thoughts? By quoting, by saying things, printing things, saying things that you learned from somebody else and not giving the source of your information. You quote it, oh, that's a very nice thought, and you stay there very proud of a person. Yeah, I'm such a deep thinker. And it's not even your thought, it's somebody else's thought. But you don't want to say who it is because you want to get the credit for yourself. So a person says over things, or prints things, and that, what's the English word for that, Rabbi Mintz? Plagiarize, right. Quoting, saying things on your own name that really belong to somebody else. Gezel, stealing their thoughts. That's stealing. Can you return that? Well, maybe you could. Maybe print another book, and maybe the same people who saw the first book have to see the second book if you want to say it over. But not everybody's going to see the second time what you're saying in the name of the source. It's very hard to do tshuva on that, but that's stealing. Yosef wouldn't do that. He wouldn't say b'shem Oorah. Our rabbis tell us a person who says something in the name of the source brings a redemption to the world. We learned that from Esther, Hamalka, the whole story of Purim, when she heard the two servants of Achashverosh plotting to kill him, and Mordechai heard it. Mordechai heard it and told Esther about it. She told the king, and he put him to death. And she said, in the name of Mordechai, which eventually caused the whole redemption of the Jewish people. Later on, Achashverosh found that Mordechai did it. He rewarded him, the whole thing. She said, in the name of, she could have said it, that she's got all the credit for herself. She told the king the other day. No, she said, Mordechai told me. She made sure to give the credit where credit is due to Mordechai, and she brought a redemption to the world. So this is something which is also in the category of Gezel, the same category of Gezel. So we've gone over some of them, and now already time for us to come to some questions. So next week, Mr. Hashem will continue. We still didn't say the reason why Gezel is so strict. What's so terrible about Gezel? We said one reason, but we have to come to explore a much deeper reason why Gezel is so terrible. But we didn't finish all the types of Gezel yet. Maybe some of you have your own ideas. We can contribute some types of Gezel of stealing. And now, Rabbi Biederman, you're going to moderate us for the questions.
Any questions in the room? Not all at once. Okay, we'll throw out a question from online. I heard that I shouldn't kill a spider if I see it in my home. Is that true?
Not kill a spider if what?
Somebody told somebody not to kill a spider if they see one in their home. And the other question is, if they see an ant or a moth, are they allowed to swat at it? Are they allowed to kill it? or not?
Yes, you are allowed to kill it. If for no reason at all you don't kill animals or insects, if you don't have a reason for it, it's God's creation. But if it's bothersome, you're allowed to, or if it's dangerous, because if it's a black widow spider, you can kill any place. It's dangerous, it's poisonous. But just regular spiders that are just don't look so nice. They're amazing creatures. If I take a look at the web that the spiders weave, their web, it's really full of such wisdom. A spider web is unbelievable. But if it's bothersome, you're allowed to kill them. Even a roach, excuse the expression, roach. You're allowed to kill, naturally, because they're disgusting in your house, so you're allowed to kill it. No, not on Shabbos. If it's dangerous, you're allowed to kill it on Shabbos. It'll be dangerous. If you have a poisonous snake in your house, you're allowed to kill it.
I think the
even
question was
outside
about
in the street, you're allowed to kill it.
an ant, a moth, something that's not dangerous.
In the house, it's bothersome. An ant might get into the food. You're not allowed to eat it, so you're allowed to kill an ant or a moth. But for no reason, you wouldn't, outside, you don't go around killing ants for no reason, or moths outside. But in the house, where they're bothersome, a nuisance, you're allowed to kill them as a nuisance. And we have hand up over here. We have a...
If you cut your nails and a pregnant woman steps on it, is it like, where does it come from that it's like that it's a dangerous thing that they could lose their baby from?
Well, it comes from a very interesting source that we are told that the creation of Adam and Chava, when they first were created, they were covered with covering like nails. Just like the whole body was covered with nails. It was shiny and smooth and nice. It was very nice and protection for them. After their sin, that was taken away from them and were only left on their fingernails. The rest of it was taken away from their body because of their sin. And the nails that we cut, they are a leftover from that, what they had in the beginning, and it is a kitrug. It's a, what's it called, a kitrug? Kitrug. Pyramid kitrug. What's the word for kitrug? Kitrug. Prosecution. So it speaks badly. Prosecution speaks badly about people because the sin of Adam Rishon caused such terrible reaction for all future generations. So the nail, if there wouldn't be for that sin, there wouldn't be any people being born anymore because everybody would, Adam Rishon included all the neshamas together. So they would have gone right into Gan Eden. If they wouldn't have sinned, right, they would have come to the completion. A few hours later, into Shabbos, it's so many things I'm throwing around over here for a few minutes, but sorry, I'll try to be understandable. So that caused the fact that the children should be born in the future because of that sin that they committed. So therefore, the nail pregnant woman stepping on that nail, bringing out the child that's going to be born, which came from the sin of Chava and Adam, who took away the covering of nails, that brings out this prosecution and this bad kitrug of mankind, and that's why the child could be lost, because the nail represents this big sin that they did, which the nails were taken away from the covering of their body, and it speaks badly about the sin that was, and therefore the child could be lost. To really explain it, it'd take me another half an hour, but I can't. But more or less, I hope you hear what it is. And some of the things that would be thrown in over here.
Okay, an online question. There are organizations that are set up that constantly denounce anti-Semitism and things like that. Is it realistic to combat anti-Semitism, or is that just part of our being in exile? And should we just accept it and not combat it? What should our approach be to anti-Semitism?
Well, we know that anti-Semitism comes because of our fault of not being Torah-abiding Jews like we should be. That's why we are in exile. That's why the Holy Temple was destroyed, because we do not live up to the Torah standards and what God demands from us. So that's why we're being punished into Galus, we go to exile, and persecuted by our non-Jewish neighbors, many of them, and many over the years and over the centuries. It's a punishment. So we have to work on getting rid of anti-Semitism mainly by studying the Torah and keeping the Torah and praying for the redemption and praying for the temple to be built. And then there won't be any anti-Semitism anymore, because everybody will recognize that we're the children of God, we're God's nation. So that's the main way to work on that anti-Semitism, by perfecting ourselves and living by the Torah laws and the Torah standards that God demands from us. In the meantime, though, we certainly try to minimize anti-Semitism by doing the proper things to show that we're good people and whatever. I don't know exactly what these organizations do to combat anti-Semitism, but there are things that could be done, and we should do those things in order to minimize anti-Semitism, because it bothers us, it pains us, and gives a lot of problems. So we have to do in a down-to-earth way how to combat it and to minimize it. But we have to realize that that's not the main thing for us to do. The main thing for us to do to combat anti-Semitism is for us to follow the laws of the Torah and get God's favor in His eyes back again, and then we won't have to worry about anti-Semitism. But in the meantime, there is a reason to try to minimize it the best we can.
I have a question. We were talking about stealing. So if you walking in the street and you find money, you don't know whose it is.
And that's something later on that we mentioned over here.
Is that
But
stealing?
if you do find something in the street, if it's money, so then you don't know who to return it to. How are you going to return the money to somebody? If there's something, there's a whole laws in the Talmud, Gemara discussing finding lost articles. If it's something that somebody has identification to it, then we must announce to the public that we found something. The person who lost it must come identified with the proper identification, and then we have to return it to them. Things that cannot be identified, so then you're allowed to keep, because there's no way of returning it. You don't know who to return it to. That's in a nutshell, that's the law. Because a lot of laws that are involved in that. The whole 10 pages of Gemara, 20 pages of Gemara, back and forth, discuss this whole situation of finding a lost article. But in a nutshell, that's really what it boils down to. If it's identifiable, then we have to make an announcement, we found it, and somebody should come along and gives the right identification. We have to have a mitzvah to return it to them. If it can't be identified, then you're allowed to keep it.
Israel Schwartz thanks Rabbi Mintz for making him feel uncomfortable, because he usually tastes a grape from the bunch before he buys them, and now so he wants to know. He intends what? He takes a grape just to make sure that they're ripe and they taste good.
Well, it could be that the store allows people to taste it before you. Sometimes a lot of people.
A lot of stores have signs that say no tasting. You know?
No, okay.
So actually, Yisrael wants to know: can he just go over to the customer service desk and ask them for permission? Does he have to contact the CEO or something to make sure he can taste his grape?
I think the person in charge, the store manager, would be good enough. He's in charge, so he can make the decision whether it's tasted or not. But some people need a lot of grapes to decide if it's tasty or not. So that's for sure not so good, especially if they're watermelons and they want to taste the whole watermelon. The things that are one grape and watermelon.
If Sarah was a Neviah, how could she laugh that
if Sarah
was a Neviah, how could she laugh when she heard that she was going to have a baby and then deny it afterwards?
Well, we have to understand, number one, that not every Navi and Neviah know everything. They know only what God reveals to them, and God doesn't reveal to them everything. Very little reveals to them. Only certain things He wants them to know and to announce to the public, to the Jewish people, He reveals to them. But Nevi'im don't know everything. I think I quoted a few weeks ago, Elisha, the great Navi, when the woman came running to him about the child that died, he gave her a blessing to have a child, and the child died. He came to him running that the child died. But he saw something's wrong. She's running, and he said to his servant, I don't know, something's wrong, but God has not revealed to me what the problem is. So she told him. So a Navi doesn't know everything. So Sarah did not know that she was going to have a child. And she did not know that there's a malach saying that. She thought it's a plain Arab coming from the street, you're going to have a child. So it was just a laughing. It was a laughter to her. It didn't make any sense what he said. So she did not know it in the Vua. She was very old by that time, and she, for a natural childbearing age, she was past already. She couldn't have a child. So the whole thing was a big joke to her. And why she denied it later, because she, Shalom Bayis, she didn't want, Avraham Avinu was upset with her that she left. So she said, no, I didn't laugh. She didn't want him to be angry at her. She didn't know that God revealed to Avraham that she left. She thought Avraham said it by himself. Once he said to her, no, I know you did because God told me, then she did not deny it anymore. But the Ramban tells us what the sin was that she did, that she should have said, halavai, not just laugh at her. Halavai, God can do anything. Even me, he can be a child, even though it's impossible. God can do the impossible. So she was too light with it. She should have said, halavai, you hear something with somebody that doesn't make any sense. Halavai, God can do anything, even doesn't make any sense. That was, but the fact that she did not believe in it, there was no reason why she should believe in it.
Okay, speaking of prophecy, Hashem appeared to all the Jews at Mount Sinai. Why can't He do that from time to time just to inspire us and show us that He's really there? Or at least show us a very clear message, send us a very clear message that He exists, rather than sending these like hidden things that we have to look for. Send us a bas kol, perhaps, a heavenly voice, so that we can be inspired and do the right thing.
Oh, that would be great. The problem is that God tells us that if you will sin and not go in my ways, I will hide myself from you. You don't want to see me, I won't show you myself. If we don't keep His ways and keep His mitzvahs and be law-abiding Torah Jews, so we are going away from Him, then He goes away from us. And the Jews at that time of the Holy Temple, they saw miracles, but they chose not to go in the way of Hashem. They went away from Hashem. Hashem goes away from us. I will hide myself from you. You won't see me anymore so easily. That's part of the punishment, that we have to really work hard to see Hashem and keep His mitzvahs like we should keep. So it's time of Golus. God's saying, I'm not going to show you miracles anymore, not open miracles, because you have to be worthy of it. We have to be worthy for God to appear to us. If we're not worthy of it, He's not going to send the bas kol, send the voice to us, or the prophecy, whatever it is. We have to be worthy of it. And we're not worthy of it. We have to be better Jews. All of us, all the Jewish people, it's a nation. We have to become better people.
Okay, I have a question about money. Let's say somebody comes to me and wants to borrow from me money. And then he doesn't want to give it back because he say, I'm very poor, I need the money, and you can afford it. Is this a stealing, or is right?
Well, it's not stealing exactly, because when he took it with permission. Yes. But you're obligated to pay back a loan. So it's an indirect stealing. It's not direct stealing. But you can't say that I'm poor. That's Robin Hood did. I said Robin Hood. It's told from the rich to give to the poor. But that's not a Jewish concept to steal from the rich to give to the poor. Because we say God will take care of the poor, and God makes people rich, God makes people poor. It's not for us to steal from somebody and to give to the poor. So a person cannot say, I'm poor, that you can afford it, and I can't afford it, therefore I'm not obligated to give it back. You can ask him, I'm poor, do me a favor, I can't pay it back. Forgive me, don't make me pay back. So if he says, okay, it's okay, but it's no, I want it back, you can't say, well, I'm poor, I don't have to give it back. That's 100% wrong, and you're not allowed to do that. No way. You have to maybe borrow some money to pay him, but you have to pay back. You can't get away with it. There's a famous story from the Mr. Reichman, when he was in his heyday, Mr. Reichman, the billionaire in Toronto. I'm sure you know Mr. Reichman, the billionaire. Great tzaddik, a great pious man. And a rabbi came to borrow some money from him for yeshiva. So he used to give out money to all good causes, naturally, very benevolent person. Millions and millions of dollars he gave away every year. And he lent the money to this person. And then he said to him, well, when will you pay me back? So he said, I'll tell you, whenever you need it, give me a call. He's a billionaire. Whenever you need it, doesn't need it. When you need it, give me a call. So I guess he chuckled off and said, okay. But if he said, I want it back, you can be a big billionaire, you have to pay it back. Even if it's me $100 and he wants it back, he's a billionaire, but it's my money. You borrowed, you have to pay back. That's what it is. If you joke with him and he says, okay, he laughs it off, okay. But if he doesn't laugh it off, you have to pay back. Even though he doesn't need it. But he needs $100, he doesn't need it. But it's his money. God gave it to him, so he has it. Okay.
Online question. It seems to me that Orthodox Jews are very judgmental. They're always saying this is wrong and that's wrong. Why are they like that?
This is wrong or he's wrong. I mean, judgmental, he's wrong. No, this is wrong. He, the person, the judgmental, judging people. He's wrong and they're wrong. I don't think they say that. Orthodox people judge other people, we said last week, but tzedek is a mitzvah to judge people in the right way, in the right light. We're obligated to judge people in a good way, not in a bad way. So I don't know if they're really pious people, it's Torah-abiding people, that we judge people in a good light, not a bad light. So I don't know what I mean by Orthodox people. They say this is wrong and that's wrong. This, not him. That's not judgmental. If this is wrong, because it's wrong. Because it's not kosher, so they're not to eat it. This is not for Shabbos, they're not to do it. So we're saying a lot of things are wrong to do, but not being judging people, that's a different story altogether. We're talking about people, we judge them in a good way, not a bad way. That's part of our obligation.
Questions
I'm
in
not
the
sure
room?
what the person means. I have to explain the question.
Okay, we have a question from Israel. A young lady in Israel would like to know what's the balance that she should strike as far as security goes. Should she just be going outside whenever she wants? Should some people are locking themselves away? Should she be carrying a weapon or pepper spray if she goes outside? Or should she just say, I'm relying on God, and go outside and do whatever she does normally and say, I have full faith in God, and have a nice day?
Well, this is the question being asked over and over again by many parents and many people. Should they go to Israel now? Should they have somebody just called me up a few days ago. They have the tickets from a long time ago, 2.5 weeks. If they don't go, they lose the tickets. I told them I should check because a lot of times El Al gives you, because when things are dangerous, they give you time to go. They don't cancel the tickets. But let's say they cancel the tickets. If you don't go, should they go to Israel? So the answer is that we have a certain rule that we abide by, that what is considered dangerous. We're not allowed to do a thing that's dangerous. So what's called dangerous? To walk in the street, cross the street is dangerous. In the news lately, how many people are killed, but this bus killed a person, that killed a person. People crossing the street are being killed over the country for sure. In New York, it's not a rare thing. So don't cross the street. It's dangerous. So ask the question over here. That's in Israel. Are you allowed to cross the street? You're allowed to walk outside. We know a lot of people, there's a lot of crime being done in New York. A lot of Israelis say, don't come to Israel, don't go to New York. Look, all the crimes happening in New York and people are being killed in New York. So what is allowed, what's not allowed? So we have the general rule that we're told in the Talmud that a thing that everybody is doing is permitted. If everybody's doing it, you're allowed to do it. If everybody's walking outside and crossing the street, you're allowed to cross the street. If people are walking outside 12 o'clock at night in certain areas, you're allowed to do it. If people are not doing it, you're not allowed to do it. It's called Doshu Boy Rab. The thing that everybody's doing is permitted for us to do. So since now in the land of Israel, we checked on it, and everybody's walking in the streets, everybody's going on the buses. They say there's a few policemen on every bus, whatever it is. Whatever everybody's doing, you're allowed to do, and have faith in God, and nothing's going to happen. Sometimes something happens, but you can't stop living because of that. Life has to go on, and if you're too careful, life can't go on. Everybody will stay in their house. Nobody will go outside. There won't be any business. There won't be anything happening. You can't live like that. So even though some people will be hurt by it, but millions and millions of people won't be hurt by it. So this is up to God to decide what to do. But once it's being done by the community, everybody's doing it, then we are allowed to do it, and we say, don't worry, God will take care. If something's supposed to happen, it will happen anyway. So it's up to God to decide. So that's a very good general rule to live by. Yes? Oh, 1 second.
Susan, Mike.
Take the mic from Mike.
Okay. I just came back from Israel. I was there for 2 weeks.
Oh, yeah. Oh,
And,
lucky you.
Yes.
Just now you came back?
No, I came back. It'll be a week tomorrow.
Oh.
Okay. And
Did you encounter any of this type of
well,
violence?
I went with my sister, and we were told, oh, don't go here, don't go there, whatever, cancel the trip. And we said, whatever's going to happen, would happen. But actually, it was wonderful. We were 4 days in Jerusalem. That was our first stop. And yes, you saw a little bit less people, especially at the wall, but you saw more, IDF and police. But people were going. We went on the light rail. We went where we wanted to go. And we
Good
didn't
for
go
you.
out at night late, because we don't go out at night. Even here, we don't go out.
Yeah.
So it just, but people, carried on. We did the buses.
Right,
and
business
everything.
as usual, more or less, right? Business as usual.
Exactly.
Well,
And it was wonderful.
All the rabbis in Israel are telling people, don't stop living,
Exactly.
live normally.
Exactly.
And we hope
Right.
that it won't,
Right.
it won't
Now,
get any
obviously,
worse.
I didn't go to the West Bank. We wanted to go to Hebron, but we were told,
Yeah, well, that's
don't
more
go.
that's more dangerous over there.
and there'll be another time we'll be able to go. Right now
Yeah.
wasn't the best, so we didn't go. But we went to the market, Machane Yehuda in Jerusalem.
yeah.
That's loaded. I mean,
Yeah.
people, especially on Thursday, when
Yeah.
everybody's buying for Shabbos and whatnot. And life goes on. You
So we have a
to-
first-hand witness who you should be on first. What they have to they have
That
the
was
chance.
just 2 women, just my sister and I, and we're not young. Thank you.
Let's not get personal.
Don't take that. Don't take that sitting down. Don't take that sitting down.
I know not.
We're still good friends. Okay. You're taking a chance. Do we have any more questions? Oh, Mikey. Yeah, Mikey. Yeah.
Hey, Rabbi. So my question is about wearing a yarmulke.
Wearing a yarmulke?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So my question is like this: if we know that, if we know that the entire world looks at Jews through a magnifying glass and they judge us much more harshly than they would on a non-Jew because they have higher standards for us. Wouldn't it be more practical to have something other than a yarmulke so everybody would know that, oh, this Jew is doing something wrong? Like, everything we do is put onto a magnifying glass because we're wearing a yarmulke, and it creates opportunities for Chil Hashem left and right without us even noticing it. And maybe we can just wear a Magen David. What's the difference between that and a yarmulke?
Well, Magen David, so
obviously,
you're a Jew also then. What's going to help you if we're Magen David? Also you're a Jew. So what's going to help with Magen David?
I'm saying, like,
You're going to hide it?
No, not hide it.
So
but
then you know you're
it
a Jew
doesn't
if you wear Magen
Why
David.
should it be out in the open? I understand for brachot, for davening, you have to wear a yarmulke, but what's the reason
I
that
said just
we
the
wear
opposite.
yarmulke
Just
all
the
day?
opposite. Just the opposite. You should wear a yarmulke and make sure that you watch it. Careful. You show that.
Obviously, we're supposed to be the best Jews ever
Well, so
possible,
we
but
have to
that's
live
not.
up to. That's right, and we have to live up to the yarmulke. And
Well, let's
have
say
the
we
yarmulke,
know
you have
that
to
we're
be
less than perfect.
Listen, you don't have to be perfect, but you have to be up to the challenge. You have to be perfect. Nobody's perfect. They won't be judged if it's not perfect. But you have to. The yarmulke is obligates us to act like good Jews, like good people, and it's good to have an obligation. And it's just on the contrary, it's a good idea to wear a yarmulke because you're being looked at. And therefore, we have to live like God wants us to, and we'll live to perfection. Not take it off the yarmulke, and I'm okay, I have to do what I want. What kind of thing is that? We have to live like God wants us to. We're a holy nation. We have to live like the holy nation. We have to show people we're a holy nation. Take off the yarmulke, no, it's okay. We don't have to live. What do you mean?
I'm not saying
we're
that.
a yarmulke, and you have to live up to it.
Of course, we're supposed to strive to be the best Jews ever. But
What?
I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that when you take off your yarmulke, you're able to do anything goes.
You don't feel the pressure.
Saying,
You don't feel the pressure. You have to feel the pressure.
but
You have a
is that
yarmulke.
worth risking a chilul Hashem?
Don't make it Chil Hashem. What do you mean? So being Jewish, you make Chil Hashem. We should not show that we're Jewish.
Been there, done that.
No, I don't agree with you, Mikey. I'm sorry. I don't agree with you. Just the opposite. We are Jews. We have to live like Jews. We have to live like God wants us to. We have to be special and act special, and we have to be careful about stealing, and careful about the way we talk, and careful the way we walk, and careful about everything. Because that's a Jew is God's children. And we have to live like God's children, and we don't have to run away from it by taking off the yarmulke. You have your hand up?
Last week, we had a few people with their hands up. We have a few online questions. So
Okay.
last week, Rabbi Mintz said that at Sinai, God revealed the laws of the Torah, but the history of the Torah, the stories that happened afterwards, were not given at Sinai. They were given later on. How do we know that the rest of the Torah, the rest of the stories in the Torah, like the story of Abraham, how do we know it's true? How do we know he ever lived? How do we know he existed?
Well, the Ramban tells us on the Torah and the appropriate passages of the Torah that Moshe Rabbeinu, Moses, got from God word for word all the stories of the Torah from the time the world was created to the time of the flood, to the time of Abraham, the time of Yitzchak, Isaac, and Jacob, and the 12 sons until the bondage in Egypt was all dictated by God to Moses. Every word of the Torah was dictated from God to Moses. Everything we have in this wonderful holy book, the 5 books of Moses, was dictated to him, everything until the time the Torah was given. And then Moses wrote down afterwards what God dictated from afterwards. So all comes from Moshe Rabbeinu. All comes from God speaking to Moses when all the Jewish people saw God speaking to Moses. So we know that it's true, that God spoke to him directly, gave him every word of the Torah, and that's why we cannot change one iota of the Torah, not one letter, and not even one dots in the Torah. We can't change anything. Everything in the Torah was given to Moshe Rabbeinu, Moses, by God, directly. And we saw it, we know it to be true. So the answer to the question is, God gave to Moses every word of the Torah.
This is Judy's question.
Okay.
She didn't want to ask it.
Okay, you fulfilled what we said tonight. The name of the source. He gave the name of the
Oh,
source.
right. So this is
Okay.
Judy's question.
So you're bringing a salvation to the world.
Okay, so this,
Mashiach is coming tomorrow. Yeah.
Judy's question is, why isn't killing more of a sin than the stealing? I like that question too.
Killing is stealing. You're stealing a person's body. That's called stealing. It's also in the general stealing.
All right, Judy?
As a matter of fact, in the Ten Commandments, it says you should not steal, right? It's not talking about stealing money. So it's stealing a person, kidnapping. When the Torah says you're not allowed to steal in the Ten Commandments, it means you're not allowed to kidnap. It doesn't mean not stealing. The law of stealing is written later on in Leviticus, the parasha of Kedoshim. But the Ten Commandments means stealing a person. That's stealing. It's stealing a person's life is the worst stealing they can do. He's stealing his life from him. He's stealing his life, taking away.
On Shabbos, we use on Shabbat, Friday night, they ask about, but I guess Shabbos morning too, we use 2 loaves of bread. Why do we use 2 loaves of bread? And why do we cover them by Kiddush? I heard that we cover the challah before making Kiddush so as not to embarrass the bread, since it should really be blessed first. I assume that's the children's answer. What's the real reason?
Well, the reason for the 2 challahs is because when the Jews were in the desert for 40 years, what did they eat? What was their food? What was the man. We call it manna in English, manna. Man. God every morning gave down to them fresh food that came from heaven. They made a bracha, motzi lechem min hashemayim. We say, motzi lechem min haaretz. God brings forth bread from the earth. They made a bracha, motzi lechem. He brings forth food from heaven. So they got from heaven every day the man that they ate. But on Shabbos, the man did not come down on Shabbos. So what did they eat? Because on Erev Shabbos, a double portion came down for Friday and for Shabbos. That was a miracle of 40 years in the desert of the food that they had. So to remember that great miracle that God gave double food on Erev Shabbos and gave every day food for them, the man. So remember that by having a double 2 challahs. We covered over because to keep the man fresh, God gave a covering of dew on top of the man to keep it fresh and moist. So remember that miracle that the man was fresh. The 2 challahs represents the man. We covered over to show that God covered it. That's why we eat kugel on Shabbos. Ashkenazim eat kugel. Everything we eat is for a reason. Potato kugel because it has a layer on top, a crust, and the bottom, and that's remembrance of the man that God gave between the crust that kept it fresh. There was man on the bottom, man on top, and therefore we eat kugel on Shabbos to remember the man. There are some people who have 12 challahs on Shabbos in the morning. How do you like that? 12 challahs. You ever see in the bakery they have a section challah? Each section has 6 sections to it. 2 of them is 12. And the reason for that is because it's remembrance also on the shulchan. In the Holy Temple, they had the table which had 12 breads on it for a whole week. And they used to take it off on Shabbos and eat it. So remembrance of those 12 challahs, we have the 2 made into 12, and therefore you have 12 challahs. But that's not a law. But there's a law. We must have 2 challahs in Shabbos. The 12 is just a tradition by some people. So that's the reason for that. People don't realize everything we eat Shabbos, everything has a reason. Whether it's fish, whether it's soup, whether it's kugel, all these things have significance to them. It's not just kreploch. All these things have significance to them. It's not just everything the Jewish people eat. Eating has significance to it. Yes.
Okay, so you didn't really answer. I still have a question about the yarmulke. And another question.
What's your question?
Like why?
He didn't ask why. He asked why should we wear it? It shows that we're Jewish. So people scrutinize us and say, oh, he's a Jewish, he didn't do this and this the right way. We expect more from him. That was his question. Okay, why we wear yarmulke?
Why yarmulke and why the tzitzis out? I was told to wear the tzitzis in, but I see a lot of people wear the tzitzis out.
No, you went under your clothing, you wear it, but the tzitzis...
No, I mean the fringes. The fringes.
Fringes are,
why out? Why not?
Well, the fringes, because we say the fringes, tzitzis, it says in the pasuk, Arisim Aisai, you'll see them. We say it twice a day in Krishma. You'll see the tzitzis. You'll remember all the laws of God. Because the tzitzis, the numerical value of tzitzis, how much is it? Tzaddik is 90, Yud is 10. Tzaddik is 90, is 10, so it's 200, and Tuf is 200, 400. So we have 600, and the 5 knots, and the 8 strings, 613. So we look at the tzitzis, 600, so it says, you'll see the tzitzis, remember all the laws of God. So that's when we're out to look at it. Remember, we have 613 mitzvot. The Chafetz Chaim tells us that if we have a challenge, we spoke before about a challenge, how to stand up to a challenge. One way was to remember, we said before, stand up to a challenge, to remember our mouth, to be careful. Sometimes we have a challenge of doing enough sin. Look at the tzitzis. Look at the tzitzis. Take a look. It says, you see them, you remember all the mitzvahs of Hashem. So it'll help us stand up to the challenge. That's why people wear the tzitzis out. That's the reason for that. A yarmulke on our head is to show that the simple meaning is because we want to realize that there's a higher power above us, that our head, our intellect is some people think that's like the Greeks believed. Men's intellect is the highest point in life. There's nothing above that. There's no God above that. The man is intellect. And we say, no, cover up your head in front of God. God is the highest intellect. He gave us our mind to think, but there's something above us, more than our own mind. God gave us our mind, and He has a greater mind than we have. So we want the yarmulke to remind us at all times to keep your head covered because there's something above that, more than the man's own way of thinking.
We have a
It's a shame
question.
that people don't realize all the reasons for these things. We'd be able to live a much higher spiritual life with realizing all these things that we're doing. Yes.
Okay, we have a question. Is it ever okay to lie? And if it is, when is it? What under what circumstances may somebody lie?
Well, we learned from last week's parsha, we know you're not supposed to lie, but when it comes to keeping the peace, you're allowed to lie. In other words, if you tell somebody who took that piece of cake from the table, he took it over there. You don't tell him, no, I don't know who took it. One of the kids came in and took it. One of the kids came in. Even it's a lie, but you want to keep the peace. If the person finds out somebody took it, they'll be angry and cause a problem. You're allowed to lie about it. And certain different types of circumstances that will cause problems, you're allowed to lie in order to avoid problems. You should try not to lie directly. If you try to say, well, I don't know, say the child took it, say, I don't, who took the piece of cake? I don't know. You say, not lying. Maybe you're lying, but not directly. It's a good question. Whatever you say certain words to get out of it. But if you have to lie directly, you're allowed to lie in order to keep peace or to avoid a difficult situation.